All right, so today we're looking into something pretty heavy.
Yeah.
A plane crash, a lot of lives lost.
Mm-hmm.
It's the kind of news that, you know, it really makes you think.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're doing here on the show today.
Yeah.
We're taking this tragic event, the downing of an Azerbaijan Airlines plane,
Right.
and we're going to be using it to kind of understand, these really complex issues like international relations
Yeah.
and aviation
For
safety.
sure.
So we've got some great sources for this. We've got some news reports from Reuters, from CNN.
No
We've got
problem.
some really in-depth expert analysis,
Great.
really trying to kind of get to the bottom of, what happened
Right.
and why it matters, even if you never plan on even getting on a plane.
Yeah, it's interesting how these kinds of events, these singular events,
Yeah,
can really act as a catalyst to force us to examine these global systems
Yeah.
that we often take for granted.
totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so picture this, December 26, 2024, a regular Azerbaijan Airlines flight, passengers on board,
Right.
going about its business.
Mm.
And it's suddenly hit,
So,
most likely by a Russian air defense system.
oh, wow.
Now, early reports, they're pointing to misidentification.
Okay.
But that really raises some red flags for me.
Yeah.
Could you maybe explain why that's so strange, considering all this sophisticated technology?
Well, Russia has the S-400 air defense system,
Right.
and it's considered, one of the most advanced in the world.
Okay.
It has a range of up to 400 kilometers.
Wow.
And it can track multiple targets simultaneously.
Yeah.
When we're talking aircraft, cruise missiles, even ballistic missiles.
That's a lot.
And it's designed to distinguish between friend and foe.
Right.
So this incident is definitely puzzling.
Yeah, so if these systems are so sophisticated, how could they mistake a passenger plane for a threat?
Yeah.
What would that even be like for the people on board?
Yeah. That's going to be a crucial question. And one that investigators will be, really meticulously trying to answer.
For sure.
And imagine, the suddenness of it all.
I know.
1 minute you're cruising at altitude, the next
Yeah.
chaos.
Oh, my God.
Reports suggest it was a missile strike.
Yeah.
And it's really chilling to think about those final moments.
It really is.
The investigation is going to be piecing together this really complex puzzle
Yeah.
using radar data, communication logs, the debris field, all to really try to understand what led to this tragedy.
It's just a stark reminder
Yeah.
that even in our, modern world,
Mm,
air travel is so commonplace.
it is.
These zones of conflict, they exist.
Yeah.
And these systems that are designed to protect
Yeah.
can fail,
Absolutely.
and with devastating consequences.
All right.
And this isn't just some far-off event.
No.
This impacts all of us
For sure.
who travel by air.
Mhm.
Think back to MH17
Right.
shot down over Ukraine in 2014.
Oh, yeah.
This incident brings up the same questions
Yeah.
about the safety of civilian aircraft
Right.
flying, through or near conflict zones.
Yeah.
It makes you think twice
Absolutely.
about your own travel plans.
For sure. And, this incident has implications beyond individual travel concerns.
Okay.
We're talking about the potential impact on international relations,
Right.
alliances being tested,
Yeah.
this whole web of interconnected consequences that could ripple out from this single event.
Let's unravel that web a bit.
Okay.
Our sources indicate that the plane was flying through disputed airspace.
Right.
What does that even mean? What makes it disputed?
Well, in this case, we're talking about a region
Yeah.
where multiple countries have these overlapping claims.
Oh, wow.
Each one asserting their sovereignty over the airspace.
Okay.
And this particular area,
Yeah.
it's contested between Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia.
Wow. So this plane was essentially flying through
Yeah.
a geopolitical minefield.
Excellent.
But why was it even there in the first place?
Right?
Was it a case of the airline, just veering off course, or is there something more to the story?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
There's a lot of speculation right now. Some experts suggest, maybe the airline was trying to take a shortcut,
Okay.
maybe save some time or fuel,
Okay.
while others believe there might have been miscommunication
Really?
with air traffic control.
Yeah,
It's really too early to say for sure,
of course.
but it's clear that something went wrong.
Yeah.
And, really understanding those factors, the contributing factors.
Right.
That's crucial.
It's almost like there are these two parallel investigations going on.
It is.
One that's focusing on the technical details of the crash.
Right.
And the other one's focused on the geopolitical chessboard where this all played out.
Absolutely.
I mean, it makes you wonder how much those political tensions in the region played a role,
Yeah.
whether intentionally or not.
That's a valid point. And that brings up the question of responsibility.
Right.
Was this just a tragic accident?
Right.
A case of misidentification?
Mm-hmm.
Or were there other factors at play?
Yeah.
Could there have been like a deliberate escalation of the conflict?
Right.
These are really tough questions that investigators will be grappling with.
And it's not just about pointing fingers.
No.
This tragedy also forces us to look at the systems that are in place.
Yeah.
The ones that are meant to prevent these kinds of disasters.
For sure.
Now, we talked about the ICAO before,
Yeah.
but for anyone who's not familiar,
Sure.
can you maybe break down exactly what they do and how they relate to this?
Yeah. So the ICAO,
Yeah.
it stands for the International Civil Aviation Organization,
Okay.
and it's a specialized agency of the United Nations.
Okay.
So think of them as like the rule makers for international air travel.
Okay.
They set the standards for safety, security, efficiency of air navigation
Right.
around the world.
Wow.
Yeah. And, in the wake of MH17,
The ICAO, they made some recommendations about managing airspace over conflict zones.
yeah.
But obviously those recommendations weren't enough to prevent this tragedy.
So what went wrong?
Yeah.
Why didn't those recommendations from MH17 prevent this?
Right.
I mean, is there anything else the ICAO could have done, or is this just, a case of inherent risk when you're flying near conflict zones?
That's the million-dollar question.
I know.
The ICAO can make recommendations,
Yeah,
but it's up to individual countries to implement them.
right.
And there's a lot of debate about the placement of air defense systems,
Yeah.
particularly in areas with, active conflicts or disputed territories.
Right,
Critics argue that having these systems so close to commercial air routes,
right.
it creates just an unacceptable level of risk.
For sure.
They're calling for stricter regulations,
Okay.
larger buffer zones between military operations and civilian airspace.
Right.
Anything to prevent another tragedy like this.
It's a chilling thought.
It is imagining these planes full of people going about their lives, flying right through these invisible battle lines.
Absolutely.
You have commercial airliners,
Yeah.
families going on vacation, business people traveling for work,
Right.
sharing the same airspace with military aircraft and these powerful weapon systems
It's scary.
designed to take down targets.
Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly.
And that's where the criticism comes in.
Right.
Some experts believe there needs to be like a fundamental shift in how we manage airspace over conflict zones.
Yeah.
They argue that relying solely on recommendations and just hoping for compliance,
Yeah.
it's not enough.
What?
We need more proactive measures, stricter enforcement,
Right.
and potentially even international agreements that restrict the placement of air defense systems
Yeah.
in certain areas.
All this talk about systems and regulations.
Yeah,
It's easy to forget that at the heart of this tragedy
right.
are real people, families who lost loved ones,
Absolutely.
people whose lives were just cut short in an instant.
It's awful.
Their grief and their demand for answers.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be lost in all this geopolitical noise.
No, it shouldn't.
One quote from a grieving family member really resonated with me.
Yeah.
They said, "We want answers, but more than that, we want this to never happen again."
Wow.
It's a powerful reminder
It is.
that this isn't just a political game.
Right.
This is about real lives lost.
Absolute.
And those lives were lost within a very complex geopolitical reality.
I were.
We've talked about Russia's involvement, Azerbaijan's ownership of the airline, the disputed airspace.
Right.
But this event also has implications for Armenia, Georgia, Turkey.
It does.
It's a tangled web of relationships and rivalries.
It is.
And this incident has the potential to throw the entire region into further turmoil.
Okay, so we're talking about a powder keg here.
Yeah.
What's the backstory?
Can you give us a quick rundown of the relationships between these countries
Sure.
and how this event could make things worse?
Yeah, so,
Right,
it's a
right.
region. Yeah, it's a region that's, it's really steeped in history and conflict.
Right.
You have Armenia and Azerbaijan, and
Yeah.
they've been locked in this, decades-long dispute
Oh, wow.
over the Nagorno-Karabakh region.
Right.
Then you have Georgia with its own really complex relationship with Russia, after that 2008 war.
Right.
And then you add Turkey into the mix,
Okay.
a strong ally of Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
And it just adds another layer of, geopolitical tension.
So this incident,
Yeah.
it's not just about, a plane being shot down.
No, it's terrible.
This is about a region that's already on edge
Right.
with these simmering tensions that could just like boil over.
Absolutely.
What are the potential scenarios here?
Well,
I mean, what's the worst case outcome?
I mean, in the worst case scenario, this incident could escalate into a wider regional conflict.
Right.
You could see a chain reaction
Yeah.
where Azerbaijan feels aggrieved
Right.
and takes, retaliatory action against Armenia.
Okay.
And then that could draw in Russia
Right.
as Armenia's ally,
Right.
and then Turkey in support of Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
And suddenly, what started as a tragic accident
Yeah.
could spiral into a full-blown war.
It's crazy to think
It is.
that it all comes back to this one event.
Yeah.
This plane shot down in disputed airspace.
Yeah.
It's just a stark reminder
It is.
of how interconnected the world is.
Yeah.
How something happening in some remote corner of the globe
Mm-hmm.
can have ripple effects
For sure.
that impact us all.
Exactly. And that's why, it's so important to delve deeper
Yeah.
to understand all these nuances of these
Yeah.
complex situations, because it's not just about who's right or wrong
Yeah.
or who's to blame.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing the human cost of these conflicts.
Right.
Right. The families who have lost loved ones.
Yeah.
The communities that are torn apart by violence and instability.
We started this deep dive with a tragedy.
We did.
And we've unpacked a lot of information.
Yeah.
There are still so many unanswered questions.
There are.
The investigation is ongoing.
Right.
The international community is watching closely,
Absolutely.
trying to understand what happened and how to prevent it from happening again.
Yeah.
But beyond that immediate aftermath,
Sure.
there's a bigger question that lingers.
Yeah.
How do we ensure the safety of civilian air travel
Right.
in a world where these kinds of conflicts seem increasingly common?
Yeah, it's a question without easy answers, but it's one that I think we all need to be asking.
I agree.
Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
this isn't just about geopolitics or aviation regulations.
Right.
It's about human lives
For sure.
and our collective responsibility
Right.
to try to create a world where these kinds of tragedies aren't just unfortunate accidents,
Yeah.
but preventable occurrences.
It's a heavy thought to end on,
It is.
but an important one.
Absolutely.
And that's really what we're trying to do here, on the deep dive.
Yeah.
Take these, complex and often challenging topics
Mhm.
and break them down
Right.
so you can walk away
Yeah,
with a deeper understanding of the world around you.
for sure.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.